Okay, brace yourself for this one.
Racial egalitarianism, all arguments ranked and debunked. I mean, this is a pretty big video. Cool. Wow.
The West is racist. That's what mainstream leftism has been saying for decades.
Yep.
Why
Yep.
else would
Yep, they have him saying
there
that.
be such great disparities in income, crime rates, etc. between racial groups?
Nobody
In their
knows.
worldview, all racial groups and cultures are equal. Therefore, all disparities can only be explained by discrimination. And for just
Of course, because we all know that's true.
as long, the mainstream right has been
By the way,
counter-arguing that culture explains all disparities.
Culture, economics, upbringing. Some of you come from a war-torn country, then it's going to affect you. Like the guy in Belfast, England, that tried to behead someone. He came from a country where they behead people. It wouldn't have popped into the head of someone who hadn't actually seen it happen before. So yes, those are the biggest, most important factors, according to me.
That's correct.
In their worldview, some racial groups completely randomly adopted cultures that sabotage themselves. For them, culture is the root cause. Any racial group could theoretically adopt a culture that has worked for
Not just culture. Wealth, poverty, crime linked since the dawn of human society. Biggest correlation between crime, violence, is poverty. Anywhere in the world, independent of race. Poor white people, just as likely to be violent as poor other races.
any other
Crime and poverty. Video that denies that link, that's not entirely right.
group and improve themselves.
True.
And for that reason, all could theoretically assimilate anywhere. Both of these worldviews are nonsensical. Obviously, discrimination isn't
What this video is alleging that certain people end up poor because of their genetics, basically, and so that they're poverty and crime they're linked, but they're poor because of their genetics. I'll order my repost to that once we get to it.
the only factor, and culture clearly matters. But just as obvious, a people's culture is not random. It's the product
Yes.
of the people who create and sustain it. And isn't there a more obvious root cause to consider? That perhaps different groups are innately different and thus have different outcomes, even in the absence of outside forces?
Oh,
When
man.
studying group disparities, why don't we examine the groups themselves? You already know why.
One problem with this is Saudi Arabia. We have a relationship with Saudi Arabia going back to the petrodollar's creation. We have all our military bases there. We prop up their undemocratic regime. And so we enable that society. Saudi Arabia has funded radical Islam, like versions of Islam that the most extreme, the Al-Qaeda, ISIS version of Islam, across the Middle East. So you have the West. It's not organically choosing to have this extremist religious schools in Pakistan, in Afghanistan. That was something we, white people in the West, enabled by supporting the Saudi royalty. So we have an influence on what their culture is. It's not just... So the worst examples of Islam were, in a lot of cases, created or propped up by the CIA, like ISIS in Syria. CIA, Mossad, propped that up to overthrow the Assad regime. It's not organic. So this guy just saying, oh, we're trying to judge them by their culture. Well, culture isn't organic. Hamas in Gaza, 1.8 billion Qatari cash funneled by Netanyahu to the terrorist organization. It's not a genuine or grassroots organization. It's been propped up by Israel. So again, you can't judge the society by this culture that was foisted upon them.
Because in our modern society, one of the most sacred dogmas
This is yes. It's everybody is equal. It's the
is
same.
racial egalitarianism.
That's right.
The belief that all racial groups are fundamentally the same, which is precisely why in this video, I'll be ranking and debunking all arguments for racial egalitarianism and then putting them on a tier list. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing. The actual egalitarian.
Okay, so he's tier list.
And then putting them on a tier list. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing. It helps the channel.
This
Quick
video,
disclaimer.
Oh man.
Just this entire debate exists because of the collective disparities between entire groups. We'll therefore be dealing with collective group averages. Therefore, the existence of exceptional individuals of
Averages. Wait, what? Wait, there's averages?
any group isn't relevant, as they are precisely that, exceptions. If you're the kind of person who accuses other groups collectively when it suits you, but then accuse others of racism if they don't treat members of your group as individuals, you can click off. Intelligence is not genetically linked. This obviously false statement is a necessary act of mental gymnastics for the purely socioeconomic factors crowd. Because intelligence is heritable, as shown from twin and adoption studies, it's completely within reason to say that certain groups have selected for it more than others. In fact, if you agree with evolution, then you must concede this. How else would humans have evolved intelligence? Some dog breeds are obviously smarter than other dog breeds. The Border Collie and Chihuahua are both the same species, yet differ greatly in intellect and
I don't know what study this is from.
trainability. Should we expect that a Chihuahua would do as well as a Border Collie?
Man.
Is it purely socioeconomic factors and anti-Chihuahua racism that makes them a minority in working dog roles?
That's a bad
NPC tier. Humans are genetic.
Jesus. This video, bro, and it hasn't even been 3 minutes into the video. Oh my god. Holy shit.
99.9% identical. You share half of your genes with a banana. 90% of your DNA sequence
I agree that this argument is completely nonsense. Yeah.
is shared with your cat. Quantitative similarities between genetic content does not equal qualitative differences. That 0.1% matters. Did you know that gray wolves are
Yeah, problem is, the chat, even some of its chat, is racist. Compared to leftists that bring in violent third world migrants and that attempt to behead someone like in Belfast or have machete fights in the streets of the UK. I'd rather have, if they're going to be against the bringing in people that are going to have machete fights on the streets of the UK, they're better than leftists that are supposedly non-racist.
99.9% identical to domestic dogs. In fact, they only diverged from each other about 20 to 30,000 years ago, which is significantly shorter than the divergence between some human groups.
Oh my god.
But obviously that
Bro, like 0.1% matters. Gray wolves are 99.9% identical to domestic dogs. One is a dangerous wild animal and the other is a beloved pet.
doesn't mean it's okay to bring a gray wolf to the dog park. If gray wolves on average end up being more aggressive than dogs, solely blaming it on just socioeconomic factors like dog trait disparities seems a little silly. Because remember, aggression, impulse control, personality traits are all also genetically linked. NPC tier. There is more intragroup variance than intergroup. This claim says
All of
that
these-
the genetic difference between
All of these arguments, I don't believe I'm agreeing with this guy for the argument so far.
randomly selected
They
person
are-
in the village
I must
and
say
another
page for
randomly
those.
selected person in the same village is greater than the genetic difference between the average person of one race and the average person of another. Therefore,
I've never even
race
heard
is
this.
inconsequential. The premise is true, but there's a flaw in this logic. Not all genes are made equal. Most random genetic variance between people
Somebody says this video would have been insta-banned in 2021. It would have been. It would have been. This is... Wow.
Yes,
doesn't
it would have been insta-banned in 2021. That's sad. Sad because I don't think anything should be insta-banned unless it's, involves sexual situation with minors or something of that level.
matter. But some specific genes matter so much that practically the entire group adapted to have those genes and are often defined by it. For example, the Duffy negative mutation, which is found in 95 to 100% of West and Central Africans, makes them immune to malaria. But 0% of those without African blood have it.
Wow.
Or the Tibetans' EPAS-1, which allows them to survive in high altitudes where oxygen is reduced by about 40%, which occurs for them about 90% of the time, but 0% for Africans and Europeans. Or the ABCC11 gene that makes 80 to 95% of East Asians have no sweat odor.
Yeah, no body odor.
But again, practically non-existent.
Yeah, I'm jealous of that one.
This is mainly for Korea. Yeah.
This becomes even more complex when it comes to traits that are influenced by multiple genes. We haven't fully isolated the genes that are responsible for intelligence or
man.
personality, yet we do know both are genetically linked. And I think we can both agree that social cohesion caused by
Somebody said this is like racism 201. This is your second class?
Yes, this is the new form of racism that's spreading online.
Yeah.
similarities in intellect and character
Uh-huh.
is vastly more important to survival than odorless sweat.
Yes.
Flop tier. Race is a social construct. Nowadays, whenever a leftist says X is a social construct, you should just interpret that as code for I have no count.
Well, I disagree. You have the entire Western media and academic system teaching people that being white is bad, white privilege, that oppressed minorities are good. And I've seen examples of that, like in the Carmelo Anthony case. When you look at the black people, they're like, well, they're waging a lot of the language they use is part of that language of systematic racism. There we go. They use systematic racism. It's okay to screw over white people. You teach people it's okay to hurt white people, then they're more likely to hurt white people, to commit crimes against white people, to stab white people in the chest at a track meet. They're more likely to do that if they believe in the whole systematic racism and white privilege. So that is, and that white privilege, systematic racism, it's widespread across all the West, and it affects behavior. So you need, if you want to judge, first eliminate that shit as one huge starting point. That would, I think, drastically improve the situation everywhere, and in terms of violence and crime and whatever, is to get rid of this whole white privilege nonsense.
To this observable aspect of reality. It's not an argument.
The migrants coming in, they're being told by the NGO that bring them in that it's okay, the white people deserve to have their countries invaded. That type of shit. When it affects things.
Dude, the fucking image, oh my god.
It's just wordplay. What does social construct even mean anymore? Anything that humans have a socialized concept for? By that logic, everything is a social construct. The sun, the earth, molecules, everything has a socialized concept, as proven by the fact that I can name them and you know what I'm talking about. The fact that we have a social construct surrounding any aspect of reality does not mean that aspect of reality is made up. In fact, we build social constructs around real things out of necessity. And
an argument I would have say that is male and female. They're definitely social constructs, and they're based on some people being women and some people being men. But they're based on they're based in reality.
A lot of things are social constructs.
IQ tests are unreliable. For many...
No, they're reliable.
This video to me is like... This is like, I'm getting...
One thing I will say, if someone that's in has Western education, goes to school or whatever, they're more used to dealing and taking tests. And if you give someone a test to someone who's never been to school, an IQ test, they will do worse just because they do not have test-taking experience. So I think that's why a lot of African countries get particularly bad IQ scores.
So much satisfaction out of this, you guys have no idea. You have no idea. Oh my god, it's pure catharsis. It is. And the thing is that finally you can say this. Finally there's a conversation. Don't tell bird brain guy like this. Oh yeah, science is racist now? Of course.
Decades, race egalitarians have had to deal with the world IQ map, which showed interesting patterns between IQ score and identity. There
Do you remember how mad everybody got at me on Twitter for bringing this up? People were losing their fucking mind over this. They were furious at me
Well, look where it's highest, like Germany and like Norway.
for this. But nobody was saying I was wrong. It's a weird map. Yeah, nobody could have predicted this outcome.
Now, let me look up one map to compare it to. World map poverty. So, China, much richer than India, has higher IQ. No data. So, we could assume this is probably red here. The poorest parts of Africa, yeah, the part that has no data, probably all of here is some of the poorest parts of the world have the lowest IQ. Let's see. Canada is blue. Why Mexican is a little bit lower? I don't know. The richest part of South America has the highest IQ. So you could just, of course, the creator of this video will say, well, IQ created the poverty. I don't think I agree entirely with that. There are a lot of things like wars and that create poverty that have nothing to do with how smart the people are. And the biggest issue is, yeah, poverty correlated with IQ pretty strongly.
only rebuttal has been either that IQ is not meaningfully influenced by genetics, which is demonstrably false,
Yeah.
and that IQ has issues. I don't contest the latter, but it's the best we've got. IQ is the best predictor of success that we have, even more so than being born rich. Some then argue that IQ in reality should be used as a predictor of success in Western society, rather than intelligence. Fine then. If IQ is a reliable metric for success in Western society, then naturally those of low IQ will not do well in Western society.
They
And
used to have IQ tests for job applications. They got rid of that. I forgot why.
Because it ended up hiring a lot of people that from the wrong demographic. It interfered with DEI.
Therefore, we should not be importing them, nor should we expect low IQ groups to have similar outcomes to high IQ groups, even in the absence of discrimination. Since IQ is so artificially advantageous in the West, let those of low IQ thrive in other societies. Why do they insist on coming into our ones where those suffer? The reason is because there are no societies where high IQ isn't advantageous.
That's correct.
NPC tier. Culture.
Well, why do they try to go from poor regions to rich regions? Because poor regions and low IQ regions are one and the same, pretty much.
Fully explains disparities. This is everyone's favorite cope when they don't agree that the West is discriminating against certain groups, but don't want to give leftists reasons to call them racist.
You will notice that this video doesn't talk about poverty at all. They talk only about culture. Whereas I say poverty is even stronger than culture in the correlation with IQ scores. It is the #1 correlation. Poorer the country, the lower its IQ score. The more people live below the national poverty line, the lower the IQ score of the country will be. It's #1 correlation. And he doesn't even address that. So that is #1 flaw with this video. Yeah, culture, it's maybe the second most important, but poverty, #1.
really saved
And he doesn't address it.
best for last. Oh, man. Oh, wow.
And poverty, that one you can't blame on race. On saying, oh, people in Africa, they're poor because they have low IQ. No, you had just had the Industrial Revolution began in Europe and the United States. That's all. It just happened there first. We had the Dark Ages. It took where like 2,000 years where we accomplished pretty much nothing in the West. Then we had the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution, and that's why most of the wealth of the world is concentrated in Western hands, which is mostly white. And because of that, Western hand and white IQs are far higher than the rest of the world because That's where the wealth is. If, like 200 years from now, when the wealth has managed to distribute itself a little bit more evenly, you can see how IQ scores are then.
Here's the thing, you're going to be called racist regardless when you disagree, so you might as well be honest. Why do some groups adopt or create certain cultures more readily than others? Both genes and culture obviously have an effect on each other. Genetics influence what culture you're most innately compatible with, and culture works as a form of selection. But which came first, genetics or culture? This isn't a
The chicken or the egg?
philosophic question. Genes obviously predate culture. Culture is a product of a people, not the cause of it, even if there is a feedback loop. Just because a culture works for one group of people doesn't mean it works for all.
Wow.
This tier. Different groups are different for a reason. They adapted to survive in their own unique circumstances. The expectation that you can transplant the people from one part of the world into another, and that they'll integrate and perform at identical levels to anyone else, is a delusion rooted in the routinely debunked blank slate ideology. An ideology perpetuated solely by the fear of being labeled racist. That concludes the tier list. If there are any other arguments we'd like to see addressed,
What is good?
please share them in the comments below.
Guys. Wow. I'm going to link you guys the video. Wow.
All this mass migration from poor nations and the crime and videos of all the issues created is making people like Asmongold racist when, yeah, it's poverty. Poverty is the link between IQ.
How about that? There's the video right there. What a fuck. Wow. I don't even know what to say. Holy shit. That was crazy? That was crazy, wasn't it? Oh my God. Comments? Read the comments? Socioeconomic factors forced me to click on this video. As Thomas Sowell said, you can't even get the same equality of outcomes within the same family and siblings. How can you achieve it across society? They took away the Nobel Prize from the guy who discovered DNA for saying IQ is genetic. He discovered DNA. This is a comment from 4 days ago of some dipshit that spelled my fucking name wrong. I came here from Asmongold. Oh my God. Same. Didn't we all? As Asmon Silver. What? As we watch the video. The entire real estate estimate market is driven by the desire to get away from certain people. Jesus Christ, guys. Like, these are really, most of these circles are red. Like, wow, bro is on a generational run. Fun fact.
The person that ran into a pride parade in Berlin, he had a white skin. He just, third world country. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. If you come from somewhere that's poor, violent, and has a radically different culture than where you're going to, and you bring that person in, you're going to create conflict, and people are going to drive into Christmas markets or pride parades.
IQ is the most reliable, consistent, repeatable metric in psychology. Oh my God. I only believe in science, but only when it agrees with me.
No, this video, honest to God, had this huge flaw. It doesn't address the correlation between IQ and poverty. And it addresses all the others, but the strongest evidence that it's not racial, the link with poverty, it never gets talked about.
It's look at the most recent video, dude.
Well, anyway, that was an interesting video. And it's interesting to see how, let's say, the content creator ecosystem is changing. Like Asmongold said, this video, 2021, I don't think it would be up on YouTube. Now it is. People are realizing something is really wrong with what's going on with mass migration and whatever. Thing is, they're also, some of them, when they see all the violence and crime, they're blaming it on race instead of blaming it on poverty, culture, upbringing. I don't know that necessarily there isn't any link between race and IQ, but I think the three, it is, if there is one, it is far smaller than all the others. Poverty, race, upbringing, and I don't know if it would even be noticeable. Everywhere, having high IQ is evolutionary advantageous. Doesn't matter whether you're in Africa or Europe. Yeah, you have a higher IQ, you're more likely to survive long term. So I don't really believe that there's a huge innate correlation between IQ and race. Anyway, that's all for now. This will be on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Come watch on Kick or Twitch, and I'll see you next video. Bye.